Whether you're in high school or college, there's one thing you know you're going to have to do, and that's take notes. Whether it is taking notes out of a book or from a teacher or professor's lecture, you're going to have to get the information down in a way you can study it later. So welcome to taking notes using the Cornell system. Why should you use the Cornell method, you ask? It's less than 30 seconds into this video and already you're arguing with me. Well, there's a simple reason. It works. The system has been around since the middle of last century. It's been tested and shown to be effective. Colleges have adopted it as the method they teach their undergraduates, and even law schools around the country have adopted it as their official note-taking style. Now, how to use these notes? Once you've made the notes, and we're going to go into detail about that, obviously, the Cornell method recommends 3 different time frames for reviewing them and has some suggestions for what you do at those times. The first time would be 10 minutes after you took the notes. I realize you may have a class right after, so really read this as soon as you can after you've actually taken the notes. This is the point to neaten things up, fill in gaps. If there's words you want to underline or circle, if you want to get some different colored pens to highlight different things, all of those things you can do just to make things clear and to get a first review of these notes while everything is still fresh in your mind. You might even notice some things you accidentally left out, which might be fresh in your memory at this point. The second time you're going to look at the notes is the next day. And you're going to get a second repetition looking at the notes, but this is a point at which they recommend putting in the keywords or main ideas in that left-hand column. Now, they suggest to do it by creating questions. We're just going to write the keyword or main idea. If you want to write them as questions, you can, and you'll see why that might be helpful. But either way, 24 hours later, you're filling out those that left-hand column. And then 7 days after you originally took the notes, in other words, the following week, you're going to get a third repetition. This is where you're actually going to study the notes. And it's at this point that they say you should write the summary at the bottom. I personally would do that the first in-depth time I review my notes, which is in that 24 hours period. But either way, you're going to have a summary on the bottom. And then in the way that I will show you, what they call here the folder over method, you can actually study the notes at that point. But having done these other 2 things, they're going to still be fairly fresh in your mind. So this is the first line you'll draw to set up your Cornell notes, and you're going to divide the paper into basically 4 sections, and I will show you how to use those sections. So the first line you draw is, it gives you about 3 full lines at the bottom of the paper, this line right here, and you just draw it straight across. The second line you'll draw is the one I have here, and this space here, really if you lay down 3 fingers side by side, this is about 3 finger widths from the red line, and you can experiment a little bit with the spacing. It probably might make more sense to go wider or narrower depending on how large your handwriting is. And the third line you're going to draw is right at the top of the lined part of the paper. And you see, even with the aid of my iPad here, I didn't get the lines perfect. That's not important. What we need to do is just have these basic sections. So I've created 4 sections. There's this section at the top, which is just the blank area of the page. So, you may not even put that line going across here. You've got this main section here. This is where your actual note-taking will happen. Over here is going to be where you're going to pull out keywords and ideas. And then down at the bottom, not while you're watching the lecture, but when you go back to your notes, you're going to write a summary of what's on this page. So there you have it. The 4 sections: heading, notes, keywords and ideas, and summary. Now, of course, don't write the word heading. You're going to actually write a heading, and that's what we're going to see next. Okay, lots of advice from different sources about what to put in the heading. Some people to say to put your name. I suppose that would be important if you're sharing your notes with someone, but otherwise you know who you are. Some say to put the class name. Hopefully your notebook is organized well enough that you wouldn't have to do that on every single page, but I suppose you could if you thought notes from different classes might get mixed up. The only two things I really think are important is the topic for this page. Whatever we're talking about goes, give it a topic here, and then up here in the corner, put the date. That way, if your notes get out of order, or if you're just trying to flip back to a particular lecture's notes, it should be fairly easy to find what you're looking for quickly. So we're going to take notes about Cornell notes using the Cornell note method in a video about the Cornell note method. So if that doesn't blow your mind, then you might notice the date on these notes. That's right, I'm writing this from the future, unless this video has managed to survive all the way till 2034, in which case, congratulations, planet Earth, for making it that far. It was touch and go there for a minute. Now, don't hesitate to be somewhat creative here. I'm going to do a whole section on how to actually take the notes. This is just the layout of the system. But, if you're good at writing in various kinds of fancy ways and you want to put the title in that way, do it. If you want to draw a little picture that's related to this topic, if you're just a good doodler, feel free to do that as well. Anything that makes it visual, different colors, will help you remember. Now I'm going to take a few sample notes and just see a basic idea of what it looks like. All right, so I went back and listened to my own video and made some notes, and here they are. And how you lay out your actual notes is a matter of preference. Like I said, I'll have another video that has some suggestions, but here we're going to do sort of like an easy outline form. We'll have a topic, and then every little subpoint just gets a little dash. Notice a couple things. Again, this will be highlighted more in the actual note-taking video, but I put CN here, advantages of CN, that's Cornell notes. You want to abbreviate when you're taking notes, especially when it's a lecture. You just don't have time to write down every single thing a professor says. And we have 3 points here. It's an easy system to use, it's proven to work, and the layout makes an instant study guide. That'll make more sense in just a minute. All right, so I continued taking notes. I have this area here where I talked about the 4 sections of Cornell notes: heading, notes themselves, keywords and ideas, and the summary. Notice I've put a dividing line here. That's something that can be helpful. We've got lots of space in between the topics. That's very helpful. And even if you want to draw a fancier line in between the two, if you're at all artistically inclined, that can be fun. But that's it for the actual note-taking part. Now, at some point, the actual method suggests you do this 24 hours after you've taken the notes, but we know that you're busy, so the time frame might get messed up a little bit, and you might decide, well, I want to do this a little bit earlier, and that is to fill in the keywords on the left-hand side here. And the method itself suggests you could write them as questions, because remember, we're making this into an instant study guide, but I'm just going to write the keywords or phrases right here on the left, and we'll see that next. All right, you've got your notes for the day. I guess this was kind of a short class, and it's 10 minutes, or as soon as you can, after the lecture. You're going to sit down, you're just going to neaten up the notes, see if there's anything in there you kind of left out or didn't explain clearly. While your memory is still fresh, get those fixed up. Now, the Cornell method says that we're going to fill in this keyword, main idea, question column in that study period 24 hours after. I'm not sure I see a need to wait. If you've got time before that, go ahead and do it. But we're going to fill these in with keywords and phrases right now so that we can use those to study. All right, so as you see here, I have added just one word right here, advantages. I know I'm talking about advantages of the Cornell notes because that's the topic, but if you wanted to write a little bit more here, you could. And this just says 4 sections. So really, this should just be 2 or 3 words. Now, if you want to write these as questions, you could. You could write what are the advantages of the Cornell method and what are the 4 sections. I don't know that you need that to study. You can ask it as a question when you're studying later on, but either way, that goes in this column. All right, bada bing, bada boom. There's the summary. The official method that we saw the graphic describing before suggests maybe doing this at that 7-day period, so the week following taking these notes, it says that's when you would write the summary. I think it's helpful to have those summaries there really as long as you can, because you can just flip through and get a very shorthand reminder of everything you've done up until that time. So whether you do it in the 24-hour period when you were writing the keywords and phrases on the left, or whether you do it 7 days later, you're going to use about 1 sentence for each one of these key ideas here. So for advantages, I wrote the Cornell method is a proven and easy system to take notes. And in this section, about 4 sections, the page is divided into 4 sections. That's a summary of everything on this page. Hey, what happened to all those notes we took? Don't worry, they're still there. I hid them. I hid them under here. And the reason I hid them is for that last point I made about Cornell notes, when we talked about advantages, is that it's laid out to create an instant study guide. So I can simply use these keywords, these main idea words or phrases here, and then I can cover up this section and attempt to recite all of the details. I guess you'd have to cover up down the summary too. So don't look at the summary, that's cheating. So let's say I'm going to try, okay? And I remember the advantages. Let's see, one of them was that it was easy. Another advantage was that, what did we say? It was, shoot, I can't remember. So what you do is you look, oh, proven to work, layout makes instant study guide. Okay, then you go back. Now can I name them? It's easy, it's proven to work, and the layout is an instant study guide. Is that right? Yep, I got it all. See how easy that is? And it's already laid out this way. So that's really, other than keeping your information in a very organized fashion, it's creating this instant study guide that makes it really easy when you go back 10 minutes later, and especially the next day and 7 days later, and work on memorizing what you've written down. So that, in a nutshell, is the Cornell note system. A few final points. One is, if this seems like too much trouble, I think you'll find that it's actually a fairly simple system, especially if you go ahead and make the lines on several pages before you go into a lecture, so you're not frantically trying to draw lines while the professor is talking. The second point I'd make is to emphasize again that this works, and it works to the extent that even law schools recommend this method. Awful lot of memorization in law school, so it must work. And the last thing, of course, is adapt as needed. Make this system yours. So if there's extra stuff you want to put up here, if you like the idea of writing the keywords as questions, whatever you need to do to make this system work for you. But this basic system is a great foundation for a college career.